In this video, we're going to continue the deconstruction process in solving equations. So we have 3 more problems to work on. So let's get started. So first, we're going to look at our construction. We're going to write some shorthand. So a is divided by 2. The quotient is decreased by 5. So I'm going to write minus 5. The difference is multiplied by negative 3. So I'm going to put times negative 3. And the result is 7. Okay. So now I'm going to reverse this process so we can solve for a. So starting with 7, okay, so this was multiplied by negative 3, so to reverse that we'll need to divide by negative 3. So 7 is divided by negative 3. Now that result is a quotient. So the quotient is, well, the next operation working backwards, we had decreased by 5, so we're going to increase by 5. So the quotient is increased by 5. That result is a sum since we increased. The sum is, well, we had divided by 2, so to reverse that we will multiply by 2. So the sum is multiplied by 2, and the result is A. So the letter we are solving for. Okay, so now let's set this up. Okay, so 7 is divided by negative 3. The quotient is increased by 5, so I'm going to add 5 to this fraction or quotient. Okay. The sum is multiplied by 2, so I'm going to put the sum in parentheses so I know I'm multiplying the whole sum by 2. And the result is A, so this equals A. Okay. So now let's perform the arithmetic so we can solve for A. Okay. I'm going to do this arithmetic down here, so I'm going to write 7 divided by negative 3 is equivalent to negative 7/3. Okay, so I can put the negative sign out front. 5 with a denominator of 3 is 15/3. So I multiplied by 3 over 3. And now I will add the numerators, or this is negative, so I'll find the difference. 15 minus 7 is 8. And we have 8/3. Again, feel free to do this on your calculator, and I'll have a video at the end of this segment showing you how. So this result is 8/3 times 2 equals A. Okay. And then to multiply a fraction by a whole number, if you want, you could think of the whole number as being over 1. You multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and we have 16/3 equals A. Okay. So now let's check our result. So on the left-hand side, okay, I am going to replace A with 16/3. So I'm going to use a little, well, not a trick here, but let's look at A over 2. So I'm noticing that we would be putting a fraction in a fraction. And again, I'll show you how to do this on your calculator, and it will be simpler. But if we're going to do this by hand, I don't want a fraction in a fraction. So instead of A over 2, remember we said we could write this as 1/2 times A when we learned how to write quotients with their coefficients multiplied out front. Okay, so I am going to write negative 3, and instead of putting that fraction in a fraction, I'm going to do 1/2 times A, 16/3 minus 5. Okay. And now we're going to compute. So first the multiplication. Notice I am keeping everything so each of my string of expressions are equal. This is 16 over 6. Actually, let's simplify this a little as we go. 2 and 16 have a common factor of 2. So now if I multiply, I have 8/3. Now I need to do the subtraction. So we have negative 3. Okay. This should look familiar. We're undoing this process, so the answer is actually right here, but just to double check it, 8 thirds minus, well, 5 is 15 thirds. 8 minus 15 is negative 7 thirds. So we have negative 3 times negative 7 thirds. Now we need to multiply these. I'm going to cancel out the common factors. Again, if it helps, think of this as being over 1. And this is now 1. So we have negative 1 times negative 7 is 7. And notice on this side we have 7, so our answer checks. Let's look at the next one. Okay, so a is multiplied by 3. So we're going to put our notes here. The product is divided by 2. The quotient is increased by 7 thirds. And the result is 2/5. So let's reverse this process. So I'm going to start with 2/5. And I'm going to decrease by 7 thirds. Okay. Next, instead of dividing by 2, I'm going to multiply by 2. So the difference is multiplied by 2. Now that result will be a product, so the product is divided by 3. Reversing the multiplication, and the result is A. Okay, so now let's go through this process. So 2/5 is decreased by 7 thirds. So 2/5 minus 7 thirds. The difference is multiplied by 2, so I need parentheses. It's multiplied by 2. Hope you don't mind, I'm going to put the 2 out front because, so you could put multiplied by 2, I'm going to put it there. The product is divided by 3, so now we need to take this whole thing and divide it by 3, and the result is A. Okay. So now let's compute. Okay. I'm not going to go through all the fraction steps, okay, but first we need to start with 2/5 minus 7 thirds. Well, that would be 6 minus 35, which is negative 29/15 over 3. Now we need to do the multiplication. Well, this is negative 58 over 15 over 3. Okay. And now let's rewrite this as division. Sorry, we're running out of room here. So remember, another way to think of the fraction bar, like we've been saying, is dividing, but we can also write it as a division symbol. So negative 58 over 15 divided by 3 is equivalent to multiplying negative 58 over 15 times 1/3, which is negative 58 over 45. Okay, so this is our A. Okay. So now let's check our work by replacing A with negative 58 over 45. And looking at this piece right here, we have 3A over 2, but for the check, let's think of this as 3/2 A. Okay, it'll make our computations a little less painful. And again, if you do this on your calculator, either way is fine. You can plug or replace A with this fraction exactly. So 3/2 times negative 58 over 45 plus 7/3. Okay, so first I do the multiplication. 3 and 45 have a common factor of 3. These have a common factor of 2. So this would be 29. Okay. So notice now, this is 1 times negative 29 over 15, which is just negative 29 over 15, plus 7/3. Okay, so I'm going to give these a common denominator of 15. So multiply by 5 over 5. We have negative 29 over 15 plus 35 over 15, which will give us, oops, I lost a 1, which will give us 6 over 15. And if we simplify this fraction, they each have a common factor of 3. So this would be 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And our result checks. Okay, last one. Okay, so here we have a reciprocal. So we'll get to see how we'll solve this by reversing a reciprocal by reciprocating again. We're going to multiply by 3. Increase by 1, reciprocate. I'll just put 1 over x for the reciprocating. Multiplying by 2, or I'm sorry, multiplying by 7, and the result is negative 2/3. So let's deconstruct. Negative 2/3 is divided by 7. The quotient is, well, the next step is reciprocated. The quotient is reciprocated. Now the reciprocal is the result. So the reciprocal is decreased by 1. And the difference is divided by 3. And the result is x. Okay, so in this example, since we're reciprocating, that can get a little messy writing it as one big solution. So we're going to do these step by step. So first, and we'll label them. Negative 2/3 is divided by 7. That's the same as multiplying by 1 over 7. Reciprocate the 7, so we have negative 2 over 21. Okay. Next, we reciprocate negative 2 over 21. We'll write that as negative 21 over 2. Third, we're going to decrease the reciprocal by 1. So negative 21 over 2 minus 2 over 2. So that's 1 written with a common denominator equals negative 23 over 2. Next, the difference is divided by 3. So negative 23 over 2. Remember, dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3. So that's negative 23 over 6, and this is our result. Okay. So again, we did that step by step. Putting this in one expression when you're reciprocating can get a bit messy. Now let's check it. Okay, so I'm going to need some space. I'm going to put the 7 up here, 3, and now we have negative 23 over 6 plus 1. Okay, now let's simplify this. Now we perform any operations in the numerator or denominator before we divide, so we're going to start here. Okay, and I see, so I want to multiply this, but they have a common factor of 3, so I'm going to cancel that out. Okay, so now we have 7 over negative 23 over 2 plus 1. Now I'm going to add the denominator, or add the terms in the denominator. So this would be 2 over 2, so we'd have negative 21 over 2. Okay, and again, this is where the reciprocating thing with the fraction gets a little messy. So 7 divided by negative 21 over 2 is equal to 7 times the reciprocal. Cancel out the common factor of 7, and we get 1 times 2 over negative 3, or negative 2/3. And our solution checks.